The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
If you know me, you will know that I absolutely love football. I've grown up on football. I used to play it when I was younger. I've always watched football as well, and then I went on to manage a team as well. And while I was playing, I noticed something about injuries. I noticed really that nobody really knows what to do in the point of an injury. There's no physio at this level of football. You're relying on the manager on the sideline. And so when I got injured when I was younger, or one of my teammates had got injured, the manager would run on, and all he would have with him is a bucket of cold water and a magic sponge. That's what they called it, a magic sponge. And so when he'd arrive at you, you'd be in a lot of pain. He'd put the sponge in the bucket of cold, freezing water, and he'd squeeze it onto whichever bit of you was hurting. And I don't know whether it was to kind of stop the cold water going onto your leg or whatever it was, but for some reason, most of the time that worked. However, there were the times where if you were actually injured 5 minutes later after the magic sponge, you kind of realised, hang on a minute, I don't know whether the magic sponge actually worked here. When I was a manager, we had a similar way of dealing with it, to be honest with you. And I'll be honest, 90% of the time, it really worked. Like, we had one kid who went over and he was having this brilliant game. He was playing fantastically well. We needed him in the team. But we remember him kind of falling over. And as I got over to him, I noticed that his sock had twisted round and his shin pad had twisted round. And so I said to him, oh no, I think you've twisted your sock. Do you want me to put it back into place? And he said, yes, please. And he was like squinting at the time. And I just twisted his sock and his shin pad back into where it should be. And all of a sudden he jumped up and he ran off to carry on playing. The magic sponge is pretty important, I think, in lower kind of levels of football. However, what I would say is I've seen some really serious injuries. I've seen players break their legs, break collarbones, and if somebody ran over with a magic sponge, I think we know that in that case, it's probably not going to be that useful. I actually think this is how we as a society think about comfort. This is how we do comfort. If I just get the magic sponge, then all of the pain or the grief or the worry will disappear. I won't have to deal with it. We'll be able to get back up and then move on really quickly. We won't actually have to deal with the things that we are feeling. And as the comforter, we're able to hide behind the sponge or the chocolate or the ice cream or the words that we think we're supposed to say. Even Google thinks that it knows what people want to hear when they're grieving and offers some suggested phrases for things that you can say. It's almost like when somebody's going through something, they're a bit of a test for us. You know, if I say the right things, then I'll be able to help them or to fix them or to get them through something. But I actually think if people who are going through pain or grief could choose, then just making the pain disappear wouldn't be the answer. The last thing that people need from a comforter is someone who just rushes in with their magic sponge and tries to fix the problem. See, ultimately the reason that we feel pain or grief is because of love. It's because there are or were those who meant something to us, that we have these amazing memories of, that we care deeply about. Because there are those who have had a big impact on who we are, and therefore their loss is just that. It's a loss. It feels like part of who we are is missing. Grief then is a matter of the soul. The soul is a bit of a funny thing, isn't it? It feels like a bit of a myth. See, we don't talk about it often enough. And because we can't physically see it, we kind of feel like, well, it's not there, so I can't do something about it if something doesn't feel right. If your soul is off or it doesn't feel right, there's no magic sponge. And yet when difficult times come, it's your soul that hurts. When you are lost, it's your soul that feels off. It directs us because we sense its longing for us to fulfill our purpose and to find those that we can love and be loved by. And yet when we are where we're supposed to be, we just know, don't we? It's hard to explain, but ultimately in those moments we feel fulfilled because we've allowed our souls to guide us. Ray Charles is quoted as saying this: "What is your soul? It's like electricity. We don't really know what it is, but it's a force that can light up a room." You see, Jesus places the utmost value on our souls. In fact, for Jesus, it shouldn't be traded at any cost. In Matthew 16:26, Jesus says to his disciples, "What good is it to gain the whole world, but to lose your soul?" In the Message version, it says, "What could you possibly trade your soul for?" Jesus is talking about himself as he kind of tells his disciples about how he's going to die, and he's preparing them for life without him there. This is a special moment. It's a teaching moment. And Peter replies by telling Jesus that it won't happen, that he's going to do everything he can basically to protect him, that it wouldn't possibly happen. But he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that his words mirror a moment in the desert before Jesus starts his ministry and is tempted by Satan into not doing what he's come to do. Satan quite literally offers Jesus the whole world for his soul. Give up who you are and who you were created to be, and I'll give you power. But Jesus is also talking about what it means to follow him, and says that your soul matters. You can gain wealth or fame or success or even an Everton derby win, but none of that will be worthwhile at the cost of your soul. It matters. But it's also forfeitable, meaning that we can choose to listen to it and we can choose not to. This soul requires administering. It requires us to pay attention to it. We can't just ignore it, because in doing so, we're ignoring the very core of who we are. C.S. Lewis says, "You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body." So how is your soul? Or should I say, how are you? When did you last pay some attention to yourself? Psalm 23 is one of the most famous Bible passages ever. It begins with God as our shepherd, talking in detail about how he leads and guides us through life's peaks and life's valleys. If you want to know who God is when times are difficult, there aren't many better Bible passages. You can't read this passage and not know that it's aimed at your soul. Every line helps you feel as though you can breathe underwater. Every line offers relief from the weight of life. Every line gives your soul hope. Hebrews 6:19 literally says we have this hope as an anchor to our soul, firm and secure. See, Jesus, the Good Shepherd, is hope for our soul. This psalm is full of movement, and yet none of it is about asking you to move past or move beyond your soul's aches. Instead, this movement gently offers your soul rest and refreshment. It's calm and peaceful, despite the contrasting storms going on around. In fact, these words carry so much power that you don't even think about the darkness or the evil or the enemies that surround. You see, many believe that David actually wrote this for himself. A reminder to the shepherd boy of the Good shepherd. In the first line alone it says this: the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. And then in verse 3 he says, he refreshes my soul. To lack nothing isn't about material goods, isn't about having a bigger house, isn't about having more people around you, being more popular, more power. It isn't about that. He's talking about your soul. See, this is a God that you can trust with your soul. In contrast, Satan demands Jesus is in the desert before he starts his ministry, and he goes after ours. He promises us everything that we think we want, but Jesus offers our soul what it needs. See, God isn't pulling out the magic sponge. God is choosing the hard path. God's choosing relationship. Whether it's ups or downs, God is going to be there. The Good Shepherd will be there. He's not pushing people to move on faster than they can. He's walking with them in the pain, in the grief. When we're grieving, our souls need a good shepherd. When we're hurting, our souls need a good shepherd. And when we're anxious, our souls need a good shepherd. When we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, our souls need a good shepherd. And yet how often do we settle for a magic sponge? I was listening to a TED Talk recently, and it was by a lady called Nora McKerney. And she was talking about her grief, and she had a real amazing gift for it, which I kind of find quite rare. We struggle to talk about this subject, don't we? Whether it be the people who are going through it, and that's completely warranted, or whether it be the people who are trying to help those that are going through it, we struggle to talk about it. And amongst other things that Nora said, one of the key things that she said was this. She said, you don't move on from grief, you move forward. You see, despite many people trying to help, this wasn't what the people around her had been particularly good at. In fact, all they really come to offer was a magic sponge, a way to fix it. Moving forward isn't about forgetting or escaping, which moving on kind of suggests. It's about moving forward, taking the memories, the scars, the impact and the influence of someone or something and what they've had on us, with us. You may be grieving for a person, but it's also possible to grieve the job that you lost, or the life that you dreamed that you'd live, or even the life that you lived before lockdown, before all of the changes and everything happened. They're all certainly not the same, but they're all matters of the soul. And in order to move forward in your grief, we need someone who's willing to walk with us through it. A gentle shepherd who helps us rest, takes us by still waters, somewhere where we can relax and we can get what we need, helps us lie down in green pastures. To move forwards, we don't just need comfort, we need a comforter, a good shepherd for our soul. In 2 Corinthians, Paul describes God as the God of all comfort. In other words, there is nothing that God hides away from. There is nothing that you can say to him that's going to scare him off, that's going to cancel the deal, the relationship. He's like, no, I'm not getting involved there now, thanks. There is nothing that can drive a wedge between your relationship with him. His comfort in all things is available for everyone. So stop looking elsewhere. In a moment, if you're watching on the watch party on Facebook, it should come on automatically. But if not, can I encourage you to find the song that we're about to listen to. And it's a song called Run to the Father. And the words are simple, but it talks about how our souls need a friend. Whatever we're battling, our souls matter, and the magic sponge treatment isn't going to do it. We need a friend, a God longing for a relationship, willing to walk forward with us through our grief. So how is your soul? Should I say, how are you? When did you last pay attention to yourself? Just take a moment now to bring our souls, ourselves, before the God of all comfort. Are you weary? Are you grieving? Are you anxious? Are you lonely? Are you afraid? Are you lost? Down the magic sponge. Let's take it all. Let's take our souls to the Good Shepherd who wants to refresh and restore us. Let's pray. God of all comfort, we bring our souls to you. All of the weight that we carry, all of the things that we feel at the moment in our lives. Lord, we ask that you would walk through the valleys with us. Whether we're grieving a thing or a person, Lord, we don't just want to move on from them, we want to take who they were with us into who we become. Guide us in moving forwards in our grief. Or we're not going to hide away or try and escape from the things that we have that are going on in our souls. The weights that we carry each and every day. We're going to bring them before the Good Shepherd. We choose to ignore the things of the world, the things that we think we want but we don't need. Things we think are gonna fill those voids, the magic sponges, Lord, and we choose to put them down. We bring our souls before you. Restore us, Lord, we pray. Refresh us, Lord, we pray. Be the friend, the shepherd